Anthony, good to see you, man. And, when I saw this list, we've been talking about NL players that should be DHs for a long time. And the two most polarizing to me were Yoenis Cespedes and Kyle Schwarber. I thought it would be 1 and 2 neck and neck, but that's not the case in your list. Why?
Well, I mean, the order could go in any order, but Schwarber is probably going to be part of a rotation there with the Cubs. They have a deep outfield in general, and they can rotate different guys in DH spot, which is how most teams in the American League utilize that DH spot. We don't have too many tried and true DHs anymore. But with Cespedes, I think it's more clear cut that he would be penciled in as their DH as of today. They're optimistic that he will be available to them in that role from opening day and moving forward. And there's a lot to like about that possibility. Obviously, we haven't seen this guy on the major league field in almost 2 years at this point, just 117 games over the last 3 years, none last year. So he's starting to progress well in spring training before everything shut down. We haven't seen him, run the bases with reckless abandon just yet. And hopefully that's in the near future for him, because it's a lot to like about that Mets lineup in general right now, but you add Cespedes to it at a level we had been accustomed to seeing him in years past. If he can get to that level and stay healthy, that would be a lot of fun.
We're accustomed to seeing guys like Schwarber and Cespedes have been in the league for a while, but to think about the DH and the avenues it could open for young players to crack the code and get into a big league starting lineup. There are 3 young players on this list that you believe could see time at DH in 2020.
Yeah, and it could also just be more opportunity opens for them in the lineup in general, not necessarily just at the DH spot. But you look at a kid like Dylan Carlson with the St. Louis Cardinals, who was having a great camp before things shut down, unfortunately. And even drawing comparisons to Albert Pujols, just in terms of, opening eyes in a spring training environment and perhaps forcing his way into the big league picture ahead of schedule. He's a guy who, all of a sudden, with the DH spot available to the Cardinals, suddenly there might be more at-bats for him. And he is on their 60-man list and could be in the big leagues before long. Alec Bohm, with the Phillies, there's a guy who they think he's ready to hit at the big league level right now, but didn't have a position available to him in a pre-COVID-19 world and a pre-DH world in the NL. But, they got Gene Segura penciled in at third base. But, suddenly in this environment, in this situation, it might make sense to push him in the big leagues and put a bat in his hands and see what he can do. So, and then Francisco Mejia is just interesting because most of his value ultimately is going to be if he can be a switch hitter who can produce from the catching spot. That's obviously a nice asset to have. But, in this situation, they don't have to necessarily choose between Mejia's upside with the bat and Austin Hedges' value behind the plate defensively. They can just put them both out there and see how it goes.
Was it that long ago, Anthony, when Marcell Ozuna was the center fielder with Yelich and Stanton on the corners for the Marlins? He wasn't a bad defensive outfielder. Did this guy get rebranded by one of the goofiest outfield plays we've seen in decades? Did he get rebranded? Therefore, you believe he should be a DH in 2020?
Well, it's not just one play, although that was certainly a memorable play, let's be honest. But, in outs above average, he did not rate well last year. He was definitely in the lower percentile last year. But so it wasn't just that play. There was more where that came from. But, not picking on Marcell Ozuna, but I still think, the greatest ceiling, the greatest potential for him is offensively. And, his time in St. Louis, it was good, but it was not overwhelming in terms of his production for the Cardinals. He was just a bit above league average. But you look at the hard hit metrics, and this is all stuff that was being sold, when he was in free agency by his agent and his team. There's a lot of potential there offensively if the batted ball metrics can get to the level that they portend for him. So maybe there's an argument for the Braves putting him at DH and getting away from that particular play that we just saw and just letting him focus just on the offense and untapping that potential.
Anthony, you've been arguing for the DH, the universal DH, for quite some time. Your dream has finally come true, my friend. Well done.
I'm sorry, Greg. I know you come from a National League city.
Yeah.
I know you grew up with that, but it's well past its point. It's not the way we wanted this to happen, but I think it just makes a lot of sense. And I'd rather watch these guys hit than Anibal Sanchez striking out on a foul bunt in the World Series with the runner on third. I think
it's going to be
we need
popular.
that.
The fans are going to love it just like you. Anthony Castrovince of MLB.com. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Greg.